The internet, we all know it, we all love it, we don't even think about it anymore. That's how ingrained it is in our everyday lives. And it's probably one of the best inventions, or maybe one of the worst inventions, depending on who you ask, that we have ever seen in our lifetimes. The question I have is, the internet's known for connecting people, letting us research things, learning things. But what happens when most of the people using it aren't people? What happens if we go into a world where most interactions, most actions, most interactivities aren't done by humans? They're done by bots. We often look at this as that's what's already happening when we see a lot of interactions are happening by fake farming accounts, people that don't really exist to boost engagement and whatnot. But what happens when agents, AI agents, take over all of that interactivity? This is something that has been boggling my mind, being in digital marketing and product marketing. What happens when we have to start developing our websites and our web experiences for not people, but for agents? If we were to look at the current or last year's spend in digital advertising, in 2024, $259 billion in the US was spent, $790 billion across the global market in 2024 alone. And $259 billion in 2024, according to the Interactive Advertising Bureau, the IB. So according to the Interactive Advertising Bureau, or the IAB, in 2024, $259 billion was spent in digital advertising in the US. $790 billion was spent globally in digital advertising. And what is digital advertising? That is the creation of advertisements in digital mediums, social media, web pages. Pretty much anything you interact with on your phone is a form of digital media. Now, when you have this digital advertising, so much is spent in pop-up ads, in pre-rolls, in videos. But what happens when the ads that are meant to engage with people aren't engaging with people anymore? If you think about half of your interactions that you do online, are you doing them because you want to, or are you doing them because you have to? How many times do you go and look up a recipe and get hammered with ads? Traditionally, we're all used to interruptive marketing or interruptive advertising. You watch a television show, there's a commercial break so you can pay for the sponsors can pay for the content that you're watching. Interruptive. You go to a website and a pop-up comes up on your screen to sign up for a newsletter or download something and give up an email. That's interruptive. Ads in the banners of a website that you're viewing. It's not stopping you from interacting with the site, don't mind George, but it's interruptive. It's very rare you find advertising that fits very well into an experience that doesn't feel like advertising, but seems to solve a problem you may or may not be aware of that you might have had. Oftentimes, product placement will have that happen, as if I were to reach for a specific brand of soda at the moment and take a sip, where you could purposely see the beautiful logo that's presented on it. So my question becomes, so much of this money is spent in digital advertising. What happens to that money when people aren't the ones consuming it? Like I said before, if I need to go and get a recipe, I might ask ChatGPT, hey, how do I make a chicken carbonara? And you know what it's going to tell me? It's going to tell me the exact ingredients I need, the cook times, and where I can go and get those ingredients. If I need to go ahead and book a trip, instead of hunting around on all these sites that I have to look for, hotels and so forth and flights, instead of getting hammered with all of that ad revenue, or all those ads that are driving revenue for those websites, I'm going to have an agent that does that for me and books the flight because it knows my credit card information and it knows where I need to go and it knows the flights I might like to take and the certain seats that I like to sit in and take care of that. Granted, I don't know if I'm ready to give these sites or an agent my credit card. And we see this becoming more and more prevalent, especially with the release of Atlas, the new web browsing interface from OpenAI that's meant to help augment and supplement your web browsing ability. So what happens in a world where instead of loading Uber Eats and getting hammered with advertisements, I just ask my agent to get me a burger from a local place and have it here by 9 o'clock. And I do nothing but send that command and it takes care of it. So many roles, jobs, and money is spent around these digital ads that are almost going to be poofed out of existence, which what I would predict is probably in the next 3 years. I believe in the next 3 years, people will become much more, well, these agents will become much more useful, much more successful in the outcomes of their ability to complete tasks. And as a society, we're going to trust them a lot more and more. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I'm not discussing in this session here. So what happens when a website whose revenue is driven based on views and clicks and experiences and selling that space to ads is suddenly gone? Where does that money get absorbed into? Furthermore, what does that mean for the experiences that we can't avoid that in? We currently use social media because we enjoy, or at least we sort of enjoy. Don't mind George, he's excited about talking about this. We're supposed to enjoy in connecting with friends, learning about things. Oftentimes we're usually just engaging with rage bait. But as social media becomes one of the only prevalent places that we keep our eyeballs, and as we push more and more things to these agents that we no longer need to or have to deal with, fighting for this advertising space is going to become even more expensive, and I believe it's going to become even more interruptive. The advertisers are going to want to get in front of these consumers, and as those spaces become even more and more limited, the few spaces you cannot avoid, like television or ad-based streaming services, more and more ads are going to be placed on those services, causing you to watch more ads for the videos that you prefer or would like to see on those platforms. There are a couple of areas that we can't avoid whatsoever. Like I said, watching television streams, driving with billboards. Does that mean we'll see more billboards in our physical areas? Does that mean direct mail could actually have a comeback, especially since people don't read email, junk mail anyway? So my question to you is, what happens when all these bots are interacting on the internet and doing tasks for us on our behalf, and these ad revenue models start collapsing? Do we see an uptick in other areas where ad revenue is being placed? Do we see a lot more cars driving around with custom wraps for customers or companies? It's something I don't know. And even as a digital marketer or working in digital marketing, how am I going to understand how to get my audience to do the things I want it to do when they come to our website? Sure, we want to have a website that's engaging, that people enjoy and get a lot of value from by finding out information. But ultimately, a website has a couple of purposes. One is to build awareness, and the other is to get people to purchase the product you have. It's really the only thing that these websites are for. And if people aren't out there browsing, does that mean we're going to leave it up to the agents to do the purchasing on our behalf? And how does that affect consumer businesses or B2B methodologies? These are things I don't know how to address yet. What I do worry about, though, is we will see, from what I believe, a lot more interruptive advertising in areas we might not have expected them to be. We might see a lot more advertising in stores. If you remember, what was it? The movie Minority Report. Advertisements in that movie were plastered everywhere they could be. Are we going to see more digital or projected billboards in our physical spaces? Are people going to rely more on email? And how is that going to work when I start creating email agent bots that purposely go through, filter, and remove those better than any spam filter ever could? Those are the questions I have. When we don't need people to interact with these digital experiences, what happens to those website experiences? Again, if you think about it, every web experience is meant for the person, and we are currently building AI bots to replace that experience, to take those burdens away from people. There could be a number of scenarios that we're doing this with. Calling to get someone on the phone to dispute a credit card charge. Trying to book an appointment with a hairstylist to get a haircut. Many things that we would rather push off. Getting an appointment with a doctor or a physician. Things that we just don't want to spend our time on anymore. What happens when agents take all of those areas over? I don't know, but I'd love to know what you think. How do you think that these changes in behaviors where agents are now the internet traffic and people are less? Are people less likely to be visiting websites? Are people more likely to see ads in their physical spaces or in other digital channels? Are our social media accounts about to become even more ad-oriented than they are today? I don't know. I'd love your opinion.